on the Lost Begotten channel. We've documented the defeat of the devil people knew, which was pride. And we've exposed the devils that convinced you they didn't exist. And all of that, everything that has happened just in the past couple of years, ties back to my childhood memories of before this lifetime. Okay? And that's how I have attempted to guide people in the right direction on my other channel. And one of the things I made clear is that you've got the wrong idea about the baby Jesus. Jesus, first of all, was effectively a Shaolin master. Not just any Shaolin master. Llegando unas. The first one. And now, people who hear this, immediately they're triggered. Immediately they hear what they've been taught. I understand, little snowflakes. Don't worry. I'm not going to melt you. I'm going to make you blossom into the most special little snowflake you can be. First of all, a lot of people like to talk about this on YouTube. What race was Jesus? Race. You know, because there's a fucking finish line somewhere, right? What race was Jesus? What did the Jews call him? Why did they reject him? Why did they say he could not be a son of David? Because he was a Galilean. What is a Galilean? It sounds like what? Gale. The Gales in Galilee. Known as merchant marines. Contractors who you could hire after the fall of the Roman Empire to protect your ships. But that's just what I remember. You can, however, look up historically the reason for Galilee's existence. Rome had a lot of business in Palestine. Now, I remember them having a lot more business than history lets on. That's because, to me, Palestine, according to my memory, was a place of embassy. Okay, it was a place of multiple city-states from nations all over the world, and there was a World Congress. I want to say in Jerusalem, but the Persians, the Hittites, and yes, now called Scythians or Khazarians or whatever. The Milanese, the Polynesian, the Sudanese, the Nubian, and Upper and Lower Meso-Persia, which would be Asian-looking people, than we think. And then, of course, there was the fallen empire of Magdalenia. That was the House of the Julii. If you have to convert history from lore to what it takes to really understand things. So, in a similar way, the Catholics ran things from Rome. The Romans actually ran things from Palestine. Palestine was the center of the world. If you wanted to rule the world, you had to rule from Palestine. Caesar's triumph was actually decided in Rome and then given to him in Palestine. Now, Caesar, very important character when discussing the Galileans, okay? Because he's the reason why Galilee existed. Now, Galilee, Gaelic. Where did Gaelic people come from? What the fuck were they doing in Palestine, right? Why were Gaelic people in Palestine? Well, if you recall, about 40 years earlier, Caesar added Gaul to the Roman Empire. It didn't end there for Caesar and the Gauls. It didn't begin there either. Read your history. Take a little bit of a skeptical approach. Just read the facts, not their conclusions. Lines on a map rarely lie. And the only thing that lies even less are the logistics of battle. Now, in addition to conquering Gaul, as it was commonly taught, Caesar essentially assimilated the Germanic tribes into the proper state of Gaul. Okay. And then it was the cooperative Germanic tribal leaders, as well as predominantly the Gaulish proper actual established kingdom and government and all. Like a real civilization, not just a bunch of fucking dumbasses in the country, okay? It wasn't called Gaul. Gaul's a fucking nickname. One that I have something to do with, I would imagine. I can only imagine. See, one of the reasons why Caesar was killed was because he put the Gauls in the Roman Senate. Okay? So all the Romans and the people from Asia Minor and the people from the north, and the people from the south. And especially the people from Rome and Crete and Sicily. The Lombards, the Italics, they didn't like Gales. They didn't like Gaulish people. You see, most of those guys were suffering from a real bad case of short man complex. And most Gaulish people, like myself, exceeded 6 feet tall. 6'3" and change, by the way. But you see, history lesson aside, not only do you have Jesus' very identity, Jesus, let me just say that with quotes because that's not his fucking name. Okay? There's just so many different things that people think that are completely fucking useless. I struggle for what to cover and where to begin. I don't plan out my videos. This is not a choreographed or planned out lecture. I have no talking points. I plan the first joke. Yeah, the white girl eating can't thing. But that's about it. There's another joke I thought of on my phone. And it's on the subject of the baby Jesus. But the main idea of what I'm trying to tell you about that is it was never about Jesus and Mary and Jesus' little gay brother that liked to snuggle with him. It was about John of Alexandria and Mary, who used to like to snuggle with him. Now, you can believe what morons tell you. But let me just say this. Compared to me, they fail every fucking test on a basic level. Okay? And I challenge anybody who calls themselves a man to doubt me on that. And to that end, before I continue any further in the story, first the joke. What's Jesus' least favorite Sunday school song? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I can't, fuckers. That song is a perfect idea of how far, perfect example of how far trolling gets. Okay, that song is a perfect example of how spiritually fucking blind people can be. Just not fucking get anything. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. That would have been a bit difficult for Jesus while he was hanging up there on the cross. But just in case you don't think they're related, there is a third verse. If you're happy and you know it, shout out loud. Yes, sir. Why have you forsaken me? Doesn't sound much like yes, sir to me. Kind of the exact opposite. But a lot of things that you've been taught in Sunday school were actually just the result of ancient trolling. Oh, yes, ancient trolling. And what's trolling designed to do? It's designed to make you passive by shutting your mind down, by making you weak, by making you accept weakness. Now, I've told this story on the Lost Forgotten channel, but let me ask any new viewers. If you were with your boy, your friend, your fellow hood rat, and the popo came. Yes, I said popo. And let's say your friend there, his rap sheet was all right. But yours, you knew you had some shit coming to you. Okay? You've been kind of inciting rebellion in the masses and whatnot. Now, thing is, what was said was, stay your sword, because those who live by the sword die by the sword. And the interpretation that you've been given in order to make you weak and passive was that Jesus said that you should not fight. You should not live by the sword. Because if you do, you're going to die by the sword. So, if someone's in danger and I needed to protect them, this would be a sin for me to pick up a weapon and make sure that that person didn't die. That would be a sin, would it? I don't agree. Let me tell you what makes more sense. A Galilean under the service of Caesar would be a mercenary from the age of 13. Between the ages of 9 and 13, he would be in charge of cleaning up dead bodies after battles ended. And anyone who was a slave who cleaned up dead bodies stole from those dead bodies. You'd have done it too. Hidden treasure. Such a wonderful myth people spread to bury the history. Hidden treasure is usually things hidden by slaves, hoping to retire or be freed one day. Most of the hidden treasure that I think has ever been found. Slave soldiers of Rome and the associated and the relevant empires. So, being a Galilean, and the son of a Galilean carpenter, more than likely a shipbuilder. But I personally remember the task that I was trained in as a small boy. Before my family was killed, my entire village burned. Was cabinet making, carving beautiful wood fascias. And it was that skill that made me the perfect scribe. So from the ages of 7, maybe as young as 5, it's really hard to tell. But you'd be picking up your father's trade as soon as you could hold the tool back in those times. So 5 isn't out of the question. It does seem like I was with Peter a lot longer. But you know, the kind of work, it all might just seem slow paced. Happy to not know. Those who live by the sword die by the sword. Now, the first crime I committed that was punishable by death was I assaulted the high priest inside the temple. They never connected that. I don't think he ever realized that I was his little slave boy when he was having me executed. Because he marveled at how well I knew Torah. Talmud did not exist yet. The coffee cup is getting rather empty. Now, when I came back to town after basically escaping service, I fought for a warlord whose son betrayed him. Then I fought for an opposing warlord. Then I led a rebellion. This was all between Brussels, Munich, and Rome. Oh, and the south coast of Italy. And I'm not sure, but there's an island that I went to. I'm not sure which one it is, but we wound up at an island for a while. And got some interesting things from there, but that's a different story. Oh. Well, I mean, it is kind of related. Because we formed an alliance with that island. And if I'm not mistaken, that alliance became pivotal for hundreds of years to come. And I think it's the island that to this day is called Sparta. But I have my doubts on whether or not that is the island that should be called Sparta. Anyway. So, as I have told on the other channel, this long journey of mine into the age of 28 led me to Alexandria, Egypt. And eventually, back where my father was from. Back where my family was from, at least. I don't know, because of all the shit that you people have said. Whether or not Hashima was my father, Joseph. Yahushua, his Egyptian name, not Joseph. It means he who sacrifices himself for God. A bit ominous, don't you think? So, the point I'm trying to make is that it is historically accurate to say real Christians, like Christ, should fight for what they believe in. They should fight to protect others. First and foremost, protect the innocent on their path to spiritual enlightenment. Because that's what was wrong with the world at the time. Still is today, but it's harder to see. At this point, I'm having difficulty standing because of my back injury. Let me keep going. Now, in context, when you look at man telling someone who's about to draw their sword to stop the cops from taking him away, stop the Roman soldiers from taking him away. And this guy who's wanted, who's a wanted man, knows he's going to die. At that point, by all accounts, knew he was going to die. This is after the Last Supper. He says, those who live by the sword die by the sword. So who was about to die by the sword? Him. So what does that imply? Along with the fact that he's a Galilean. That he lived by the sword. So Christ stopped Peter from drawing his sword, Peter the Younger. Because he knew he deserved to die. Oh, but Jesus never committed any sins. What is a sin? An egregious action? Or simply one that isn't justified? My hair. That is an egregious action. But it is not a sin. But, you know, real shit is real shit. And when you're surrounded by soldiers that want to take your ass away, and you don't want the people you care about getting killed, look, they're taking me. I've done my shit. They can punish me for it if they need to. You know, I'm not going to sit there and complain. They can accuse me of exactly what I've done, and I'll gladly die for it if they're accurate. No, at the time, I did not talk like a country boy. Although, technically that's incorrect. If people didn't like me, I totally sounded like a country boy. Just a whole different type of country boy. Okay? I'm not really a country boy. I live in the country now. I'm from New Orleans. And the New Orleans accent is very conducive to countrification. Anyway, there is one more thing I want to go into that ties proper Christianity with the Shaolin monks. And we're going to go all the way there, okay? I need to make one more background thing. The temple. Money changers. Money changers. What the fuck is a money changer? You mean they change the money? Yeah. They exchange the money from one currency to another so that people could donate it to the temple? Because the temple didn't accept anything but, what, shekels and talents? You know what a fucking shekel or a talent is? You're picturing a little coin, right? Picturing a piece of silver. They call it a silver piece. A fucking silver piece. They call a coin. A shekel, and a talent. Those are slave trading terms. Notice how shekel sounds like shackle. And talent is why they bought you. See now, a shekel, a talent, and a farthing all refer to groupings and types of slaves. And if you wanted to make a sacrifice to those fuckers at that time, guess what kind of sacrifice you would make? Money changers, huh? I couldn't give a shit. Another temple with jewels and disgusting riches. It was not abnormal, if that were the case. A shekel is roughly a dozen inmates, slaves. A talent is if one of those slaves is useful and can be sold by themselves. A farthing is an interpreter. A farthing is someone who speaks your language and the slave language, like a house slave. Okay. Now I'm not sure what those currencies in modern times are interpreted to have meant when they're interpreted as coins. But I know why I got my horsehair whipped out. And really, as bad as it was, to think that people would dare to make money off of religion, that wasn't that fucking far-fetched. That wasn't that uncommon. That would have been no motivation to suddenly lose my shit. But when I came to see that after the Romans left, after there was no more Roman rule in Palestine, that these so-called Jews, not even real Jews, fucking Philistines, they were trading people like cattle. When you trade people, you very rarely trade adults. In fact, an adult would be called a shekel. So you can picture having been a slave, then having been a mercenary, having been a terrible murdering bastard. For justice. Having slowly over time gone from enjoying my powers and my talents and my body and my being as if it were a fucking race car, okay, to the realization of responsibility. God gave me these talents, and there are the weak unprotected, and enslaved. How could I just sit there and let that happen? No fucking way in hell. Could you? If you're a man, you would have taken one look at that and said, well, today might be a good day to die. I could die any day for any reason. But today, if I die, this reason means something. Shale Kriak. Die free. I saw this little boy with curly matted hair. I passed him to the left. Passed him. There was an outer hall with marble columns that separated it from the inner chamber. And the whip I had, that was from the Far East. That was from a Mongolian, a Tibetan actually. It was about yay on the handle, had a wooden hole and a wooden counterweight. And the hair on it was about yay. It's like a horse's tail. Okay. And it could be used unbraided or braided. You'd have to braid it yourself, unbraid it yourself, depending on how you wanted to use it. Whether or not you were keeping it on hand for self-defense, or the excuse for why you would have it when you weren't allowed to have weapons, unbraided, to whip your horse. Yeehaw. Right on, cowboy.